Hello everyone. In the previous video we were discussing about Unix system administration. We will continue with that concept with some more administration tools and techniques. So let's proceed. First one we are discussing logging in as system administrator, that how we can log in into the system as system administrator. For that we must have the access to root, or we must be defined as the super user. For that we have to specify login ID as root, and the default prompt will be hash, and the home directory for the root user will be slash, as generally in the Unix system. When the root changes its password, then there will not be any prompt for the existing password in the system, and in the root the value of path will be never included in the current directory, and it only includes sbin directory or user directory with sbin directory. In sbin, all the generally defined administrative privileges, administrative commands are there in sbin directory. Then in the previous video we also discussed how to become a super user for the normal user in the system. For that we are using su command to become a super user. For that we have to log in as a root by using su command, su and hyphen, then we'll specify the password for the super user, whatever the password is there. Then we'll be the super user in the system and can perform various administrative tasks in the system that are defined to be governed as a super user. In su command, if we use hyphen, it assures the environment as a root in the system, and if we omit the hyphen, then the environment will be of the normal user account, but super users privileges will be acquired in the system. If you want to exit from the super user mode, then simply type exit or control plus T. These are the various kinds of activities that a system administrator can perform in the system. First one is it can add users, can manage groups, can change the user's password, etc. Second one is it monitors and controls the system startup and system shutdown. That means when system starts up by powering on, it monitors each and every activity from that point of time in the system and till the system is shut down by the user. That means from the start to the end, whole activities are controlled and managed by the system administrator. Then third one is it monitors and controls the performance of the system resources. Whatever the different resources in the system, it manages them, it monitors them, that optimum usage of the resources is being done in the system and throughput of the system is maximum. For that, it can change the contents and attributes of the files, it can delete the files, it can limit the size of the files for the better performance of the system. Also, it can initiate or kill any process except those necessary to run the operating system itself. The files that are required for the operating system to run, except those files, the system administrator can kill any process in the system at any time, or it can start any process in the system as and when required. Also, it can control user access to scheduling services like AT and Chrome. Chrome services are those which are uh, in the management of periodic execution of the processes, as we have discussed earlier in the previous video. Also, it controls the access to networking services like FTP and remote login to any other system. It also performs backups or restore of critical files and data so as to ensure that the system has its data during the failure of the system or during the power surge or any other uh, disastrous situation in the system because of any unavoidable situation. For that purpose, it manages the data and critical files in a backup so that when it is required, it can restore those files in the system and the system can be maintained in the original state. Then it can set or reset the system clock. The system administrator can manage the time clock of the system. It can change the time, it can change the date, etc. It can change the time zone also. So these are the tasks that are related to time management in the system can be done by the system administrators. It uses val command to broadcast messages to all users. Whatever the number of users are there in the system, if the system administrator wants to convey some message to all the users in the system, then it uses the val command to broadcast the message to all the users existing in the system. Then point comes, how do system administrators do their job? Simply, system administrators use the scripts, as we have discussed earlier, scripts to perform some particular kind of function or job in the system. These are the superscripts that are written by the system administrators to perform any particular function, such as search through event or error logs, do nightly backup of drives and create archives, initiate scheduled maintenance, monitor CPU, network status, monitor free disk space. These are the various functions that can be done through scripts by the system administrator. Then cron tab, as we discussed earlier, it is the cron table that is used to schedule administrative scripts. That means these are the periodic functions that are executed on their own without intervention of the user. Once you have scheduled the scripts will automatically be executed as per the schedule defined in the scripts through the cron tabs. Then the system administrator can manage the groups in the system. A group, as we have discussed so many times in the class also, that it is a set of users having a separate set of privileges. That means various users are there in the systems and those users must be affiliated to any particular group in the system. Then every user has a primary group and one or more supplementary groups. That means there will be one primary group to which the user is linked and it can have another supplementary groups. It can be one, two, or as many as it requires for its function. Then it has the commands for group are group add to add a group del to delete a group, and group mode to make some changes in the existing group. These commands edit entries in the file etc/group. That means the group information is stored in the etc directory of the system. For example, the group consists of four major things, that is group name, group password, group ID, and group members list. First field is the name of the group. Second field is generally not used, but it is the password if you want to protect the group from unauthorized access or you want to restrict the usage of the group, then you can put the password on the group. Third field is the group number. It is the unique number that is used to identify the group in the system. And the fourth field is the list of members that are available in that particular group. Then the system administrator can also manage the users in the system. And the commands that are used to manage the users in the system are user add to add a new user, user del to delete an existing user from the system, and user mode to make some changes in the existing user profile. These commands are existing in the etc directory, the subdirectory passwd, and in users the information for the users is stored in the 7 fields. That is, first field is username, that is actually the name of the user. Second field is the password, that is generally not used, but it is the you can say protection for the particular user, and it is the number that is not shown to anyone, that is it is hidden uh, numeric entry, numeric or alphanumeric entry. Then third field is the num id, that is the user id to uniquely identify the particular user in the system. Then fourth field is the numeric group id, that is the primary groups id to which the particular user is associated. Then fifth field consists of the comment field, that means if you want to specify some commands for the particular user, then the commands are specified in that. And sixth field contains the user's home directory, the home directory to which the particular user is connected or associated. And last field is the user's default shell, that means whatever the shell is being used by the particular user in the system, it can be corn shell, it can be C shell, it can be bash shell, and or it can be another shell. Then how do we use these commands for a user to be managed? Adding a user, user add, then some options we can specify and the name of the user. For deleting a user, simply user del, and if you want to use some options, you can use, and then the username, then the particular user will be deleted. Then modifying a user password entry, for that we will use user mode command to make some changes. For that, if you want to make some changes, so you will use -c option. If you want to change the home directory, you will use -d option. If you want to change the expiry date, you can use -e option. You want to change the group of the user, you can use -g option. If you want to use login details, you want to change the login id of the user, you can use -l option. If you want to change the password, -p option. If you want to change the default shell for the particular user, you will use -s option. And if you want to use the numeric id of the user, you will use -u option, and then the name of the user to which you want to make changes in the profile. These are the different run levels in the Unix system, which tells the particular state of the system. The levels are, first one is level 0, it means system is shut down. And level 1 defines system admin mode, that means local file system mounted or not mounted, defined by that. And level 2 defines multi-user mode. Then level 3 defines full multi-user mode. Then level 5 defines graphical environment mode in Linux. Then level 6 defines shutdown and reboot mode. Then S or slash capital S defines the single user mode in which the file system is mounted. If you see at each level, a distinct set of processes are scheduled to run. That means if you want to shut down then the processes that are required to shut down a system, those processes will be executed. If you want to run the system in the admin mode, then different processes will be executed. If multi-user mode, then different processes will be executed, and such as. Then there is an init process, as we have discussed earlier in the previous video also, which controls the way that how the system is booted and how the system shuts down after the usage of the system. And so basically init process controls the two things, booting and shutdown. On boot, init run level moves to 1 or S. Either you want to shut down or you want to shut down and then reboot the system. If you want to shut down, then level will be 1. If you want to shut down and reboot, then level will be S, small s. On shutdown, if init level run moves to 0 or 6, that means if you want to shut down it, so it will be shut down, and if you want to reboot the system, then it will be rebooted. On booting, it will be in level 1, that is system administration mode, and in or system S, that is in single user mode. Either it will be in administration mode or it will be in single user mode. Then we comes on monitoring the startup and shutdown of the system. It is the init process which takes all the instructions from init table file. The etc directory contains the init table, which contains instructions for what programs to run in each run level. किस program को run करना है, किस run level को, that will be defined in the init table. System administrator maintains init table. That means it inserts the entries for adding new terminal to the system. Administrator also issues shutdown command, and in the shutdown command, what it does, it issues val to announce shutdown order to log off. That means if you are shut down the system, then whatever the existing users are there, it will log off all the users from the system and it will shut down it. After that, it sleeps for 1 minute, then sends a signal to processes for normal termination. That whatever, if any particular process is running in the system, so it insists on the normal termination of the process in the system. Then it logs off remaining users and kills processes that are existing in the system. Then it unmounts all the secondary file systems from the system, and it issues a sync to write memory resident data to this. If some uh, data is available in the right memory, then it syncs it to the permanent storage disk so that it can be available when you next use the system. The system resources that need performance monitored. That means these are some critical resources of the system which need uh, eye to eye access or monitoring of the performance. The first one is CPU utilization. That means we have to utilize the CPU effectively so that the maximum throughput we can be obtained from the system. Then second one is memory utilization. Memory utilization includes context switching, swapping time and frequency. That means we manage these critical factors to utilize the memory at its best. That means by using the available memory, we can store maximum of data in the system. Then disk space usage. Whatever the available space in the disk, how do we use it? How do we manage it? That is to be monitored. Then IO time. Whatever the input data is going on in the system, whatever the output is being generated by the system, everything is to be monitored at, and specifically we need to monitor the time, that how much time a particular input operation or output operation takes, so as to improve the system performance. Then network usage time, for what amount of time the network is being used and what amount of time it is taking to perform a particular operation over the network. Then application program usage, it controls that what kind of application is being used for how much of time and for what kind of purpose and for how long the particular application has been used. That means these are the basic critical resources that are to be monitored for effective usage of the system. These are some Unix performance monitoring commands through which we can monitor the performance of the system and can best utilize the available resources of the system. First one is ps command. It displays processes running in the system. Whatever the currently running processes are there, that are displayed through ps command. Then second one is cron command. It performs process scheduling, that the scheduled tasks are to be performed through the cron command. Then fsck is the command that is used for file system consistency check. That means if some error is there in the system, if some problem occurs in the drive or the file system, then it checks for the error and repairs it. Then netstat, it displays the network statistics. What is the network bandwidth, what is the download speed, what is the up speed, how is the usage being utilized for the network resources, etc. Then NFS stat, it displays the network file system statistics, that what file system is being used by over the network for the available resources to be utilized. Then the time command is used to display the process CPU to utilization, that the how for how much duration of time the particular CPU processing capability is being used over the system. Then df command is used there to display disk free report. That means if some error is there in the disk, then it is to be reported in the system so as to manage and to recover from that particular error. Then uptime, it displays the system load average. That means for how much time from the start of the system to the end of the system, the total time of the system through which it has been operated, it is being in functioning mode, that is the uptime. Then iostat, it displays the input and output statistics of the system. Then last one command is VM state. VM state is the virtual memory statistics. That means it displays the memory, how much memory is being utilized, how much memory is free, what is the usage of the CPU, what is the disk utilization report, how much disk is being used, how much it is being utilized. So these are the some key commands that are used to monitor the performance of the system in Unix. So this is all about system administration of Unix. Thank you very much.